Hello, I'm Paul Wyndham. I'm here to teach you a little bit about SOLIDWORKS and a little introduction, I guess. Um, First of all, SOLIDWORKS is a parametric modeling tool, which means that there it maintains relationships between features and and other geometry, and it maintains a history of the steps you use to create the geometry as it is. One of the things about SOLIDWORKS that makes it nice is you can think about your design intent and plan that into the model. So like if you have a hole that needs to be a certain distance from the end of the part, you can create the geometry in such a way that should the length of the part change due to other requirements, that hole will maintain its location according to how you placed it. Um, so whenever you start a part in SOLIDWORKS, there are a couple things created for you. Planes. It creates these three planes which create a centroid location that's called the origin. So whenever you create your geometry, you can create it around the origin if that is helpful, or you can create the origin in a certain place so that it matches up with other parts in your assembly. So first of all, I'm going to start off creating this part by using a sketch. In order to create features, you have to have sketches to define the shape of the feature you're creating. So if we were just going to, for this simple sketch, create a square, we'll create a cube. So as you can see, I placed this square around the origin. Whenever you're creating a sketch, everything you create, all these icons up here are sketch entities. So you can create different shapes and things, but each of these four lines is a sketch entity that makes up a box. Whenever you're creating sketches, there are two ways of defining the size and location and shape of your geometry. And that's first through dimensions. Dimensions, of course, are a numerical value that denotes the size of a given object. So I could do the length of this line as a dimension, or I could do the distance between these two lines. In this situation, it's the same distance. It's just different ways of defining that distance. And then the other way of defining your geometry is with constraints. So this line, I want it to be vertical. I don't want it to tip over sideways or something. So I use a vertical constraint. So these little green things are the constraints. They are definitions of geometry as it relates to other pieces of geometry. So for example, if I want this to be perfect square, I can use an equals constraint, which causes these lines to always be the same size. So now I can't change the size, I can just change the position, which I also don't want. So if I could like place this by making these 2 points coincident, which means on top of each other, or I could select the center of this line and the point of the origin and make those vertical, and I could do the same for this. Oh, if we notice right now, this line, these two vertical lines became black whenever I made this vertical constraint, so I can't change that shape any. I can make this go up and down, but I can't make it go side to side anymore. So these black lines are fully defined, but the blue lines are not. So if I were to add the other horizontal constraint to that midpoint, now my whole shape is black, and I can know for a surety that my geometry isn't going to change accidentally somehow. So now once I've finished the sketch, I can hit the done button, and now I have a two-dimensional representation of the part I want to create. So I can extrude using the extrude boss base tool and make this shape into actual geometry. In this situation, I'll just make a perfect square cube. So I'll make it 2.5 inches as well. Now I'm done. So the difference between the section of tools over here on the top left is that these create geometry where nothing was, and then the next set removes geometry from existing parts. So if I were to create a quick sketch on this plane, this surface, I could now extrude this hole, and I could, as with the extruded boss tool, I could choose something other than blind. Blind means a certain distance in. Through all would mean that it goes through everything. Up to next means it goes up to the next thing it encounters. So in this situation, I'll just do a blind, and I can say 1 inch in, and done. So now I have my cube with a hole in the middle. And so that's the basics of starting a part in SOLIDWORKS. Thank you.